Some devastating news for Arizona's senior senator and a visit with the Phoenix Police Department and staffing issues. Welcome to the Mike Broomhead Show.
Well, I got a message, I got a song. Can I get a witness? Tell me what's going on. I show the people I've been away.
My guest this week is Ken Crane. He is the president of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association, the biggest union in the Phoenix Police Department. We'll meet him in just a few moments. But first, we start every show off with something we call The Sweep. The Sweep is sponsored by my good friends at Zero Res Carpet and Tile Cleaning. Devastating news for the people of Arizona and for the McCain family. Arizona's senior senator, John McCain, quite possibly the best-known name in American politics, has been diagnosed with glioblastoma, a type of brain cancer, a very aggressive type of brain cancer. That diagnosis came out on Wednesday afternoon when the public was told about it. And so obviously people scrambling trying to talk about this illness. And I, on my radio show, talked with a doctor who was the chief of neurosurgery at Cedars-Sinai. And it is a devastating disease, but at the same time, he gave the senator a lot of hope. And what people have been saying, and the senator himself said, that he's faced worse. If there's anybody in the world that can make that claim legitimately, it's John McCain. And so it's been very, very difficult for me on a personal level. The senator, I've gotten to know him very well over the last few years. He has been very kind to me at a time when I wasn't in the media. I was really nobody. And I was invited to be the master of ceremonies at his last rally the night before the election back in '08, and I was in Prescott with him and with Sarah Palin, with the Palin group. They were in a separate rally, but I was with the McCains, and it was a big event and very nostalgic and historic in Arizona. It was in Prescott at the square in front of the courthouse, and it's where Barry Goldwater also had his final rally. So I have been, my career has been a lot of times legitimized in a lot of ways because Senator McCain has treated me so well. So the news for me was hit me personally as well as it's such a big news story to people. The senator has always struck me as one of those people that is able to overcome adversity because of his time as a POW. And I want you to see a little piece of video. I interviewed him and we kind of stumbled on some stories of when he was a POW. And I was so impressed with his attitude and his ability to see the positive in a 5.5-year hellhole called the Hanoi Hilton. This is what he said about that time.
I was privileged to serve in the company of heroes, and those men who inspired me with their leadership, names that a lot of people have forgotten now, like Robinson Reisner, Jeremiah Denton, Jim Stockdale, and others that were my leaders, that thanks to their inspirational leadership, we were capable of doing things that we otherwise never would have been. And so I look back with gratification to the degree that I was able to serve in the company of those that I still to this day know best and love most.
To have such a positive attitude from such a terrible experience has always impressed me about the senator. And one of the stories he told me was about the code in which they kept in communication, the tap code on the walls between all of the men that were in that place. So I want you to see a little bit of that story because this really is a piece of American history.
The way we communicated with each other was a tap code. Just we would tap on the walls to each other, and it's a simple code, and to this day I can tap as fast as I can talk, just about. And so we would tap to each other and keep in contact, and that was vital to resistance.
The positive side of this was the doctor from Mount Sinai Hospital in New York said to me on my radio show, there's a few things going for the senator. First of all, the location of where it is. It is somewhere that was accessible. They were able to get to it fairly easily. They were able to get all of this tumor in a place in his brain that doesn't have anything to do with affecting his motor skills, his voice, or any of his senses. And on top of all of that, getting the best care in the world from people here at the Mayo Clinic. So he's got a lot going for him, and this doctor said he believes that the senator can make a recovery from this and lead a long and fruitful life, and that's our hope. We pray for the senator, for his family, that he makes a speedy recovery, as do even his political adversaries. Last couple of things I want to mention. President Trump, speaking to the New York Times this week, said he would have not appointed Jeff Sessions had he known Jeff Sessions was going to recuse himself from the Russia investigation. He also talked about the meeting with his son, and he talked about the impromptu conversation with Vladimir Putin. He said they talked about Russian adoptions, which was a very interesting thing to talk about at dinner. That was supposed to be that meeting, or that so-called meeting, that was unreported. It was a conversation at dinner, according to President Trump. Now, locally, Kelly Ward went to the White House. She is the one who is running against Jeff Flake in a primary to try to get the support of the White House in a run against Senator Jeff Flake in a primary. We'll see if that happens. And finally, they did finally identify the remains of that 10th victim from the Payson flash floods. We'll be back in a minute with Ken Crane, but before we do that, let me talk to you about my buddies at Zero Res. Zero Res Carpet Cleaning, they are right in the middle of what is called National Carpet Cleaning Month. The product is called Empowered Water. Now, the Empowered Water is better for your carpet because they don't put any residue in there, no soap left behind. Carpets dry faster, they stay cleaner longer. They have a great special going on during the month of July. For $119, they will Zero Resify 3 rooms of carpet. But they are choosing 13 customers that are already on their schedule during the month for a free carpet cleaning. Get those 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for free. So do yourself a favor during the month of July. Get on the schedule at Zero Res. You're going to be glad you did, and you may even get it for free. We'll be back with Ken Crane. Don't go away. You know, dealing with issues in a big city like Phoenix, Arizona, and it always comes down to law enforcement, public safety. And joining me on the show now is Ken Crane, who is the president of PLEA, which is the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks again for having us, Mike.
Recently, a big story for me in town is a possible policy change by the city council dealing with police and the dealings with possible illegal immigrants.
Yeah, correct. As you know, Phoenix PD, PLEA was on the tip of the spear in the eye of the storm, so to speak, several years ago on the SB 1070 issue. And as controversial as that was, I tell people if there's one silver lining that came out of SB 1070, at least with the PD, in my opinion, was that we came out of that storm with a very, very concise, comprehensive, well-written, very tightly written illegal immigration policy. It's about 12 pages in length. It let officers know exactly what they could do, what they couldn't do, when you would do it, when you would not do it. There was no gray in it. And what's interesting, Mike, is in the 5+ years that we had Operations Order 4.48, which is the new version, written over 5 years ago, is and I confirmed this with the PD, we haven't had any complaints of bias policing. We haven't had complaints of racial profiling. We haven't had situations where officers are going around rounding up people and taking them down to ICE. None of that has happened. And so it was a surprise to the union when we found these revisions coming out, because it felt like it was done like a kind of a midnight Senate vote where
right.
Stuff's being snuck through in the dead of night. And we're like, hey, where did all this come from? We weren't in on it. We weren't on the committee. And we were very surprised because it was a wholesale gutting of the existing policy.
It would seem to most people, it would seem logical to most people that if you're going to make revisions to the policy of policing, you would at least involve the command staff of the police department, the people that are going to implement the policy, and then talk about the necessity of the policy change. Because the way it made me, when I heard about this, it gives the impression that your officers are doing something that needs to change. And I have been bragging everywhere I go when I do the national things. Your police department in Phoenix doesn't have the issues other major cities do. The community relations are good because the command staff reaches out to the public. Officers are almost like ambassadors on the street. And there seems to be a good rapport between the police officers and all the neighborhoods in the city to a very big standard. Mm-hmm. So why the need?
Well, and that's our position. It's if it ain't broke, don't fix it, okay? We agree with you, and I would argue this to people. The policy as currently written without those proposed revisions, I would argue that the way it was written, it was so clear and concise that it prevented abuses, okay? And I've also told people our officers are so busy out there just trying to take care of calls, they're not out there looking to do immigration-related enforcement. So there was no need to fix it. What this is pure politics. This is political revisions to a police policy. This is the mayor and council pandering to select small activist groups that include the ACLU, Black Lives Matter, Puente, Justice at Works, and Center for Neighborhood Leadership. And a lot of these people in these groups are serving on each other's boards of directors of their groups. So it's this spider web of these groups, but they're all buddies with each other. They have common agendas, and you know, if you go on their websites and look at their missions, you'll see some of them that say, we don't think there should be any immigration enforcement. We shouldn't be putting people in jail. We shouldn't be doing this. It's just really radical stuff.
So if there haven't been any complaints,
right?
Why are they complaining?
Because in their world, it's okay for us to partner with the DEA. It's okay for us to partner with ATF. It's okay to partner with U.S. Marshals, postal inspectors, all these federal entities. It's okay But this thing called ICE or immigration enforcement, oh, that's off limits. Don't touch that. Don't go there. Don't even say it. Don't think it. It's bad. Don't even do that. So
is an unintended consequence of this policy change when an officer has, in a situation, it's a witness to something, they're not being accused of a crime. But if an officer isn't allowed to investigate at all, you come in contact with someone that's really bad that needs to be off the street, would it preclude you from investigating who this person is other than taking their statement?
Yeah, the way they're the proposed revisions, what they want to see is it would eliminate consensual contact. You know what basic police work is? I stop you and you're suspicious in the neighborhood. Hey, who are you? Where are you going? What are you doing? What's your name? Right. That's basic investigative police work on the street. And when you're saying, we don't want you even doing that. Right. The problem is, another thing I need to add about our policy as currently written is it withstands the test of state and federal law. Right. If you gut that policy, you're going to have a sanctuary city policy. We're going to risk incurring state penalties of up to $5,000 a day on the city, loss of state shared revenues, loss of federal monies. When they had that vote at the council a few months ago, they estimated $80 million a year in federal revenues. We can't even get them to hire enough cops. Why would you do something that's going to put all those monies at risk? Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about that because staffing was going to be the next thing. I want to get an update on staffing, but also to wrap this up about what people can do and who's finally going to make this decision. When was this decision going to be made? And then go from there. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to do that and then catch up with you on where we are in staffing. Last time we talked, it was at dangerous levels. I want to find out if there's any improvement. Sure. We're with Ken Crane from PLEA, which is the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. We'll be back. Talking issues with the police department in the city of Phoenix, one of the largest cities in the entire country, and we're talking with the president of the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. One more thing about this new policy. Is there something in the policy that says if an officer is going to do something in interaction with someone, they've got to run it through one particular, now is that going to be one particular officer on their squad, or is it one particular officer citywide in the command staff? What is the reason for that?
They are creating a bottleneck. They're going back to the old 04 policy. And what they're saying is if you have anything immigration related, you will call the Violent Crimes Bureau desk sergeant at police headquarters to ask them what to do. Now here's my problem. We got about 300 to 400 sergeants on the force, maybe 100 lieutenants. We pay these guys a lot of money to be supervisors and know and understand policy. I'm supposed to have a pretty good grasp as a street officer. It's available on my in-car computer to look up. Why can't I call my boss for everything else under the sun? Why can't I call my boss on this? Well, we'll bottleneck it. We'll create so many hoops for you to jump through that you'll just throw up your hands and go, man, it just isn't worth it.
And it doesn't make any sense that an officer that we trust you with a badge and a gun and the authority to arrest, and then we're going to say you now don't have the authority to interact with the public in a way because you're going to behave improperly, even though you've got a system in place that's been working now for years with zero complaints.
Well, and more importantly, Mike, here's what they're really saying. We don't trust you to make a discretionary phone call to ICE. You got to go to Dad and ask Dad if it's okay to call ICE, and he'll make a decision. Maybe he'll call, maybe he won't, or maybe he'll tell you not to worry about it.
So before we get to the staffing thing, one more thing I learned is that years ago, and not that many years ago, Border Patrol used to monitor your radios. And if an officer had an interaction with somebody, whether they needed a translator or they thought they were interacting with somebody that might need to be detained, they would have Border Patrol just come to the scene. There was that much of a working relationship between the agencies, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. They would monitor, and you could clear over your frequency and go, if there's any Border Patrol monitoring, and a lot of times they'd answer up and go, yeah, where are you at? I'll come on over. And they would evaluate and assess right on scene.
So now let's move to the staffing issue,
Sure.
Because part of this is officers are saying to me, we don't have time to do this anyway. We're not doing it, and we don't have time because of how understaffed you have been. Where are we on the staffing issue in Phoenix?
Okay, so as of July 7th, I got the department's latest, what they call filled position report. It tells us how many total sworn we have, and that's from the chief on down. So as of July 7th, we have 22,792 officers. Okay. Now, if you remember, City Manager Ed Zucker says our target is by roughly this time next year, summer 2018, we want to get up to 3125, and that's where we're going to top out. That's where we're going to cap out. The important thing to remember, Mike, is that at the economic downturn of 2008, this is 3125 is 260 fewer than we had at the economic downturn of 2008. So they're saying in 10 years, apparently the city hasn't grown, we haven't had population growth, no infrastructure growth. I mean, just look at the downtown, multifamily housing units, university campuses springing up, and we don't need additional manpower. It's ludicrous, and that's where the rub is. That's where the union and the city disagree on staffing. We believe our department should be staffed at a level of ratio of 2.5 officers per 1,000 citizens. And if you did that based on our population, we would be at a level of somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,200 cops from the chief on down. And keep in mind this, we just surpassed Philadelphia. We passed them from 6th largest, went to 5th largest. They're at 1.5 million population. We're at 1.6. They have a police force of 6,600.
Wow.
We got one of, you throw in a few extras here, maybe close to 3,000, 2,792.
Less than half.
Right, less than half. Philly encompasses and patrols an area of 140 square miles. We encompass and patrol an area of 530 square miles. You can take the city of San Francisco and fit it in one of these squad areas of the Black Mountain precinct. Okay?
Yeah.
And we got 8 precincts citywide. Okay? Here's another comparator. The community of Ahwatukee has a population of 70,000. Any given day, we got 3 Phoenix cops down there south of the mountain patrolling Ahwatukee. The city of Prescott has a population of 40,000 and has a 65-man police department.
Yeah.
So I use these illustrators just to drive the point home. Number one, just how big we are, because here's why you need the staffing. We're covering vast distances out there, and when cops need backup, if you need help and it's going to take me 10 to 15 minutes to get to you,
right,
that's wrong. And more importantly, citizens that we serve. If it's taken us under best conditions on average 6 minutes to get to you when somebody's kicking your door in at 2 a.m., that's bad.
Right.
And that's an average. That means some people are waiting a lot longer. I've had officers tell me it's taken them 20 minutes to get to a family fight in progress.
Yeah, and those escalate so quickly. One of the most dangerous situations for an officer.
Right.
And then if you have to go into a situation like that by yourself.
Sure.
And then lastly, to add insult to injury with this, you're replacing officers that are retiring with over 20 years experience, and even if you're just keeping up with that attrition, you're replacing them with very inexperienced officers, and those inexperienced officers there's not enough of you out there, and now you're having to train brand new officers, so it waters down the experience. So
absolutely, and on these numbers, to get to where we need to be in a year from now, we have to hire 333, but on top of that, we've got around 50 people roughly that we know are going to have to retire. And then if you have another 50 that punch out, 333 becomes 433 that you need to hire.
In 1 year.
In 1 year.
Well, this is obviously not going away, but I appreciate the update, and I hope you'll come back as this progresses. I want to get you on the radio show, too, to get these numbers out to people. So we'll be back here in just a moment. Welcome back. It's time for one of my favorite parts of the show. We call it From Arizona for America. It's our way to congratulate and thank the fine Arizona men and women who have recently graduated from boot camp and are now serving in our country's military. So please join me in honoring this week Airman Justin Ritter from Sedona Red Rock High School, Airman Kendall Bassett from Moon Valley High School in Phoenix, and Airman First Class Timothy Staudenmeyer from Westview High School in Avondale. For a list of more of our friends and neighbors that are from Arizona for America, you can go to the Mike Broomhead page at aztv.com. We'll be back in a minute with Broomhead's Best and hashtag this. Don't go away. It's time for the part of the show we call Broomhead's Best. This week, Broomhead's Best is Arizona DPS, the Department of Public Safety. About a week ago, I went down to the Field Sobriety Testing Lab where they are training officers or troopers on field sobriety tests. It's actually called the horizontal gaze and nystagmus. You know that way they make you move with your eyes like this. So you go in, you drink for 2 or 3 hours, and then they test your blood alcohol level once an hour. The new officers don't know where you are they got to figure it out. Well, they did a great job with me. I felt impaired, although I never got over impaired level, which taught me a big lesson that I shouldn't drink and drive on any occasion, because even though I'm not impaired legally, I didn't feel like I should drive. So that's this week's Broomhead's Best. Now it's time for hashtag this. Hashtag the juice is loose. O.J. Simpson earns parole. He's out in October. Hide your women and your knives. O.J.'s out on the streets, or he will be in October. We'll be back to close out the show. Don't go away. Before we close out the show, I just wanted to say a few things about Senator McCain. I think that the reality of what's set in and how serious this illness is, it's showing people that politics is one thing, but this man is an American hero. He served time as a POW. He served his country honorably. He's been in the Congress for over 30 years. But when you're as opinionated as the senator is, and you're willing to cross the aisle and say some things that are kind of abrasive sometimes, you make political enemies or adversaries. Even those adversaries came forward this week with well wishes for the senator. Former President Barack Obama said some very nice things about the senator and said cancer doesn't know what it's dealing with, and said give him hell, John. And I would say from all of us, we wish him a speedy recovery. We're praying for him and all of his family members as well. Very sad news for me personally. He's been such a great resource to me and helped validate my career, and I could never thank him enough. I hope I get the chance to do that for years to come. We'll be back next Saturday night. As always, thanks for watching the show. Have a great week, everyone. God bless.
Get more of Mike Broomhead on Facebook, Twitter, and of course weekday mornings from 6 to 10 on News Talk 550 KFYI.